Honestly, I'm still a little traumatized from last summer. Picture this. I'm sitting on my deck with a glass of iced tea, admiring my beautiful flower garden that I'd spent months planning and planting, when suddenly I'm surrounded by what feels like an entire squadron of yellow jackets. And they were not friendly. One got tangled in my hair, another landed on my arm, and before I knew it, I'd been stung 3 times just trying to get back inside my own house. That's when I realized I'd made a huge mistake with my perennial choices. So let me save you from the painful experience I went through. Today, I'm walking you through 9 specific perennials that basically roll out the welcome mat for yellow jackets right onto your deck and patio areas. These are plants that might look gorgeous in the garden catalogs, but they're also sending out dinner invitations to some of the most aggressive, stinging insects you'll encounter. Let me start with Sedum, particularly the Autumn Joy variety. Now, I absolutely loved this plant when I first saw it at the nursery. Those thick, succulent-like leaves and those gorgeous pink flower heads that transition to a deep russet color in fall, stunning. But here's what they don't tell you in the plant descriptions. Sedum blooms late in the season, typically from late summer into fall, and that timing is exactly when yellow jackets become most aggressive. During this period, their natural food sources are declining, and they're desperately searching for sugary substances. Sedum produces nectar that yellow jackets absolutely go crazy for, and because these plants often grow low and spreading, perfect for edging a patio or deck, you're basically creating a yellow jacket buffet right where you want to relax. I had Autumn Joy planted in containers on my deck, thinking I was being so clever with my late season color. What I actually did was create a yellow jacket feeding station about 3 feet from my favorite chair. Next up is goldenrod, and this one might surprise you because there's this common misconception that goldenrod causes allergies. It doesn't, but that's a different conversation. What goldenrod definitely does do is attract yellow jackets in massive numbers. Those bright yellow flower spikes are like beacons for wasps and yellow jackets from late July through September. If you've planted goldenrod anywhere near your outdoor living space, you've probably noticed an uptick in yellow jacket activity during peak bloom time. The problem isn't just that they visit the flowers. Yellow jackets are territorial, and when they find a reliable food source, they patrol the area aggressively. I had a beautiful drift of goldenrod along the edge of my deck, thinking it would create a nice transition to the natural area beyond. Instead, it created a no-go zone for my entire family for 6 weeks every summer. Yarrow is another one that looks so innocent but causes so much trouble. Those flat-top flower clusters in white, yellow, pink, or red seem perfect for a cottage garden aesthetic, and they bloom for such a long period. That extended bloom time is exactly the problem. Yarrow flowers from early summer right into fall, and yellow jackets visit them consistently throughout that entire period. The flower structure is particularly attractive to them because those flat landing platforms make it easy for them to access the nectar. I planted a white flowering yarrow variety along my deck railing, thinking the soft, ferny foliage and classic white blooms would be perfect. Within weeks of the flowers opening, I couldn't even walk past that section of the deck without yellow jackets buzzing around my head. Here's one that really broke my heart to remove. Catmint. I love catmint for so many reasons. The purple-blue flowers, the long bloom season, the soft gray-green foliage, the fact that it's drought-tolerant and deer-resistant. It seems like the perfect perennial, but it's also a yellow jacket magnet, especially during its peak bloom in midsummer. The tubular flowers produce nectar that's easily accessible to wasps and yellow jackets, and because catmint is often recommended as an edging plant for pathways and patios, people tend to plant it exactly where yellow jacket activity becomes most problematic. I had it lining the steps down from my deck to the yard, creating what I thought would be a fragrant, beautiful transition. Instead, going up and down those steps became an obstacle course of dodging aggressive yellow jackets. Russian sage is another one of those beloved perennials that unfortunately makes the problem list. Those tall spires of lavender blue flowers and that aromatic silvery foliage make it a staple in so many gardens, including mine. It blooms from midsummer into fall, and yellow jackets love it. The long bloom period means you're dealing with yellow jacket visitors for months, not weeks. Because Russian sage often gets planted as a specimen near seating areas or as a backdrop to deck plantings, it ends up drawing yellow jackets right into your personal space. I had 3 large Russian sage plants at the corners of my deck, thinking they'd provide height and movement. They provided that, along with a constant stream of yellow jackets that made sitting anywhere near those corners impossible. Echinacea, or purple coneflower, is such a popular perennial that this one might cause some controversy. People love echinacea for its bold flowers and its reputation for attracting butterflies and bees. And yes, it does attract those beneficial pollinators, but it also attracts yellow jackets, particularly as the flowers mature and the seed heads begin to form. Yellow jackets are opportunistic feeders, and they'll investigate echinacea flowers throughout the blooming season. The issue becomes more pronounced in late summer when yellow jackets are most abundant and aggressive. If you've got echinacea planted in beds adjacent to your deck or patio, you're likely noticing more yellow jacket activity than you bargained for. I had a whole border of mixed echinacea varieties right next to my deck stairs, and by August, I dreaded using those stairs because of the constant yellow jacket presence. Black-eyed Susans or Rudbeckia present a similar problem. These cheerful yellow daisies are garden staples, and they bloom prolifically from midsummer through fall. That bright yellow color and the extended bloom period make them attractive to yellow jackets searching for nectar sources. The problem is compounded by the fact that black-eyed Susans often self-seed and spread, so if you start with a few plants near your deck, you might end up with a much larger population over time, increasing the yellow jacket attraction exponentially. I initially planted just 5 black-eyed Susan plants along the sunny side of my deck. 3 years later, I had dozens of plants and a corresponding increase in yellow jacket activity that made that whole side of the deck unusable during peak bloom. Joe Pye weed might sound like something you'd only find in wild meadow gardens, but it's become increasingly popular in cultivated landscapes, especially native plant gardens. Those huge, dusty pink or mauve flower heads are impressive, and the plant can reach 6 feet or more in height. The size is part of the problem. When you have massive flower clusters producing nectar from midsummer into fall, you're creating a major attractant for yellow jackets. And because Joe Pye weed is often recommended for the back of borders or as a screen, people sometimes plant it near deck edges or patio areas. I planted it thinking it would create privacy along one side of my deck. It created privacy, all right? Because nobody wanted to sit on that side of the deck once the yellow jackets discovered it. The last one I want to warn you about is aster, particularly the New England aster varieties. These fall-blooming perennials produce masses of purple, pink, or white daisy-like flowers just when yellow jacket populations peak and their natural food sources decline. This timing makes asters particularly problematic. The flowers are absolutely loaded with nectar, and yellow jackets will defend their access to this late-season food source aggressively. I planted several aster varieties thinking I was being smart by providing late-season color. What I didn't realize was that September and October, when asters bloom, is exactly when yellow jackets are most desperate for food and most aggressive in their behavior. Having asters blooming right next to my deck meant I basically lost the use of my outdoor space during the most beautiful autumn weather. Now, you might be wondering what I did about all this. Some people might suggest just living with it or trying to trap the yellow jackets, but when you've been stung multiple times and your kids are afraid to play outside, something has to change. I ended up removing or relocating most of these plants away from my immediate deck and patio area, moving them to beds at least 30 or 40 feet away from where we spend time outdoors. That distance makes a real difference in your personal experience with yellow jackets, even though they're still visiting the plants. The key lesson here is that not all perennials are appropriate for all locations in your landscape, no matter how beautiful they are. When you're choosing plants for areas immediately adjacent to decks, patios, doorways, or anywhere you spend time outdoors, you need to think beyond aesthetics and consider the wildlife those plants will attract. Yellow jackets aren't inherently bad. They actually provide pest control in your garden, but you don't want them concentrated right where you're trying to enjoy your summer evenings.